something on his own, he's just bugging out, just doing crazy stuff. The ephod was a garment. It was a what, everybody? Was a garment worn by the priest. It was a sleeveless, the best thing I could compare it to looked like an apron, okay? An apron that you wore from the shoulder, not that you tied around the waist. Apron that you would slip on over your head and hung down from your shoulders. Best way to describe it to you. Some of these ephods were quite simple. They were worn by the rank and file priests. As long as you were a member of the tribe of Levi, no doubt hanging somewhere in your closet, there was a simple ephod, one of these apron-like priestly garments that they slipped on over their heads. And then there was an ephod which only the high priest wore. This one also had a breastplate made for it, to which were attached 2 onyx stones bearing the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. You can read Exodus 28 if you want to read more about the real ephod. Not only that, but it had this built-in decision mechanism called the Urim and the Thummim. I don't have time to get into that today, but it was a mechanism of 2 objects by which God would light one or shadow the other one in order to answer yes or no questions when they were presented to him, or in order to signify choices that he would make between 2 people. He would use this decision mechanism called the Urim and the Thummim. This was also in the breastplate that was on the ephod that the high priest would use. God made use of it to guide the people in the right way. This seems to be the style that Gideon was going for. If he had just thought about it, our leader, he would have stopped. He would have stopped if he had just thought about it. Look, the only thing that God ever let his people make, besides the wilderness tabernacle, besides the temple, the only thing God would ever let his people make, read it, he would let them pile some rocks up here and there and make an altar. All right? And they could name the altar after whatever had happened at that specific place. Ebenezer, right? Hitherto the Lord has helped us. Peniel, Jacob called his pile of rocks because I prevailed with God. You see, so he would let them heap up stones to form an altar. But that's about it. That's about it. An ephod? An ephod, God never let them make anything like an ephod. No, he was wrong. Gideon was wrong to even think it. Even worse, to say it. Because in saying it, he spread it to everybody else. Long as he just started, it was only in his crazy head. When he said it, everybody caught the flu. It's not far between your mind and your mouth. See? And if God is not guiding one, he cannot be guiding the other. Patriarchs and Prophets says this, I think it's page 565. Patriarchs and Prophets says, from the material thus furnished, Gideon constructed an ephod and a breastplate in imitation of those worn by the high priest. His course proved a snare to himself and his family, as well as to Israel. The unauthorized worship led many of the people finally to forsake the Lord altogether to serve idols. After Gideon's death, great numbers, among whom were his own family, joined in this apostasy. The people were led away from God by the very man who had once overthrown their idolatry. I'm sorry, it's Patriarchs, Prophets 556. There's the page. See, you say, Pastor, what's the problem? It's just an ephod. It's just a garment. What's the problem? What's the problem? Well, here's the problem. See, there's already an ephod over in Shiloh, where the people go to worship. They go to Shiloh to worship because in Shiloh is where sacrifice is made. In Shiloh is where the priests are. The reason there's an ephod in Shiloh already is because the priest is in Shiloh already. Perhaps it was handier for Gideon to have one of his own, where he could ask God through the Urim and the Thummim what he should do and how he should judge the people. Perhaps it was handier to have the garment right there with him where he could slip it on and in his mind pray more effectively and lead the people in prayer. Problem was, he was not a priest. And God never told him he could have one of those. And his is so pretty, and his is so golden, and his is so, listen to me, and his is so convenient that soon most people don't want to ride way over to Shiloh. Pretty soon, most people on his end say, well, I can just pull in at Gideon's place for worship. Except there's nothing at Gideon's place. There's no temple there. There's no priest there. There's no word to be taught there. There's no scrolls there. There's nothing at Gideon's place but this imitation ephod and this priest wannabe. Oh, there's nothing wrong. Nothing wrong except they don't come to meet God, they come to see the pretty ephod. Because it's not far between right and wrong. It's not far at all. Gideon's sin was that he was turning the minds of the people from God to this shiny fabrication, and God had not told him to do it. No one thinks that Gideon meant for all of this to happen. No. He just had an idea. He just said, I could do something with all that pretty gold that y'all have got. If y'all would give me some of it, I could make something that will represent God. He just had an idea. It was innocent in its beginning. Nobody thinks Gideon had a plot to turn the people into holy idolaters. No. But the devil does not care what you mean to do, Christian. He only cares about what happens. Gideon may have made the ephod as a representative of the Almighty to help the people kind of see God in their worship. But a good motive can never compensate for a bad decision. So I'm going to my seat. What happened to Gideon? What happened to Gideon? What happened to Gideon? He became the slave of that other Gideon. Yeah, you know that Gideon, the one on the inside. The one that really craved reward. The one that really lit up when he heard the people say, you be our king. And even though his mouth said, no, I won't rule over you, God will rule over you, on the inside, that other Gideon was saying, yes, this is what I've been waiting for all the time. What happened to Gideon? He became the slave of that Gideon on the inside, the one that loved the attention, the one that loved reward, the one that craved recognition, the one that lived for the applause and the spotlight. What happened to Gideon? He lost control. From the least in his father's house. That's what he said he was. From the least in his father's house, he zooms to national hero, and he couldn't handle it. From a poor man to wealthy, and he couldn't handle it. The lifestyle that went with it, and he could not handle it. You read your Bible in Judges 8, verse 29, 30. It says that the man had 70 sons. Don't know how many daughters, but he had 70 boys by multiple wives and concubines on the side. He was out of control. That inner Gideon was living a life, and the outer Gideon was just tagging along for the ride. What happened to Gideon? He decided to give himself what God had not let him have. And there he goes. There he goes. You see how Gideon messed it up? You see? You see how Gideon messed it up? He had the perfect opportunity, Elder Ford. He had torn down his daddy's idols. God had defeated this massive army of Israel's enemies for him, had told them that he was not going to be anybody's king. That's what Gideon said, because God was the king. Now was the perfect time for revival to break out. They were on a roll. Now was the time for the people to say, you know what? Gideon's right. Nobody ought to be our king but God. You know what? We already have the greatest king, and we will live to serve him. Now was the time for the people to start going to their houses and breaking down their own false gods, throwing out their own pagan images, calling the nation back to the true and living God. This was the time when it was all should have turned around. But somehow, instead of using the momentum for God's glory, this brother manages to use it for his own profit. And instead of revival, comes a relapse. Come on, play for me. I'm done. Instead of revival comes a relapse. Instead of great glory comes great shame. So what is the lesson here? What's the lesson here? Say, Brother Gideon, what is the lesson of your life? I don't know. What is the lesson? What's the lesson? There are actually more than one. I'm going to share a few of them with you. You grab the one that the Spirit sends to you. Is that all right? What's the lesson here? Maybe the lesson is this. When you take that which is appointed by God for holy purpose and use it, maybe the lesson is just because you want God in it doesn't mean you've got God in it.